Hi, I'm Jessicat, and as you may notice, if I do this, I have the subtitles on, and that's because today I want to talk about what we can learn about Minecraft from the subtitles. Now you might think there's not much. I mean, all they do is show you when you do something, what sound it makes. But in reality, they do a lot more than that, as I will show you in today's video. So the first thing I want to talk about is a bit of a strange thing with item frames and paintings. If I pick block this painting and this item frame, and then I break them, you'll see it says item frame breaks and painting breaks. So that doesn't seem so unusual, right? Except when I break this block, it says block broken. When I break this block, it says block broken. So does this one, and this one, and this one. Even though these are all very, very different blocks, all of them it says block broken. Whereas for the painting and the item frame, it says item frame broken and painting broken. And I just find this so weird because I've tested this for pretty much every single block, I think. Almost all, well, every single one of them as far as I can tell, except for the item frame and the painting. When they're placed, they say block placed, and when they're broken, they say block broken. So to me, this implies that the painting and the item frame are not a block, which is kind of weird to me because it says it does think that the lever's a block. It says block placed and block broken. And so, yeah, it kind of confuses me because it implies that the painting and the item frame are not a block, which I guess technically they're entities, but, I still find it a bit weird. Anyway, let's move on. Here's another thing I want to talk about, the Flint and Steel. Now, when you light something on fire like this, you see in the subtitles Flint and Steel click. Let me emphasize that, Flint and Steel click, not clicks, click. That is because the Flint and Steel count, notice, as two different items. That's why they're called the Flint and Steel instead of, I don't know, fire starter. Because the implication is that they are two different objects. And I just find this fascinating because so often you hear people say, this Flint and Steel, or do you have a Flint and Steel? Whereas, as you can see from the title, it should actually be, I have Flint and Steel. Or do you have Flint and Steel? Because these are meant to be two separate items and referred to as a plural, which I thought was kind of fascinating and interesting because it means we've been saying something wrong. Another thing I wanted to point out is when you use a hoe on ground, it says hoe tills. So whenever you hear people saying, I'm going to hoe this block, remind them that it's not actually hoeing, they're tilling the block. Forgive me for being nitpicky here, I just think I'd rather be correct, so I'm going to make an effort to say the hoe tills from now on instead of the hoe hoes. Here's another thing. The shovel flattens when you make a grass path, or a path block, as it's called. Now, this is interesting to me for a different reason, because I'm not really sure how the shovel flattens exactly. Like, the fact that you can only use it on grass implies that you're flattening the grass, but does that mean that you're just, like patting the grass until it flattens and dies? Because that's what would seem the most likely. But I don't know, I find it kind of strange. So make of that what you will, I just figured I'd mention it. Here's one that really fascinates me. If I put on a leather cap, it says leather armor rustles. If I put on an iron chestplate, it says iron armor clanks. Gold clinks, chain jingles, and diamond clangs. Now, those are all different words, and I really like that because it emphasizes the idea that they're all made out of different materials, and it kind of emphasizes their connotations. If you want to know what I mean, like the leather cap rustling, that gives you the feeling that it's cloth, it's kind of flimsy, not very sturdy, which is the same idea as the leather armor, it's early game armor that's not necessarily very good, but it's better than nothing. The chestplate clanks, which to me sounds like a clumsy sort of the sort of word that you'd hear about a knight in armor, except a very comical knight who tends to fall off his horse a lot. It seems kind of clumsy and rough, You know, it's tough, but it's not very sophisticated. I think that perfectly matches what people's conception of iron armor is. And then when you put on gold, it clinks, which to me signifies, you know, it's very dainty, but it's not actually all that effective. You know, like a glass would clink. A fancy wine glass, how you'd clink that. That the gold armor clinks in the same way, which I think is, it just signifies how it's fancy and shiny, but it doesn't actually have much function. And then the chain jingling, I love that because it kind of the, forgive me if I'm reading too much into this, maybe I am, but for me that just means that the chain is kind of a happy sound, like because it's rare and it's kind of the fancy armor that's even fancier than gold and has even less of a purpose in my opinion because it's not even good for enchanting. But I do find it fascinating that it has this little happy jingly sound. And also if you listen, I'm pretty sure all the sounds are actually slightly different from one another, but I haven't been able to confirm that. But like if you want to listen, I'll be quiet for a moment so you can hear. So I don't know if you've heard. I think those sound faintly different, but I could be wrong, of course. Next up, there's the fact that when you place a minecart on a track, let's say I place it over here, you get the subtitle minecart rolls. Even though, as far as I can tell, you don't actually hear the sound of anything at all. I'm going to be quiet, and you can listen as hard as you want for this. I didn't hear anything there, and I don't think you did either, because there is no actual sound. You just get the subtitle without the minecart moving, which I find to be kind of weird. But that's just a random observation that doesn't really tell us much about Minecraft, to be honest, except the fact that it's strange. And also, I want to point out that when you punch something, even though there's a clear sound, there is no actual subtitle. Make of that what you will. I don't think it tells us anything either, but I do find it interesting. Next up, we have some strange differences between doors and trapdoors, or rather, a strange similarity. You'll notice that when I open and close this door, it says door creaks. The same goes for this trapdoor. The trapdoor creaks. So does this iron door, which to me suggests that they're kind of, flimsy slash crude, which makes sense. You're making things with your bare hands in Minecraft. You don't have very refined tools, so it makes sense that a lot of things you make would creak. But when you look at the trapdoor, the iron trapdoor just opens and closes. The wooden trapdoor creaks, but the iron trapdoor opens and closes, which to me suggests that all of these are flimsy, but the iron trapdoor is the only thing you can rely on to not break and not creak. So there you go. The iron trapdoor is solid. All the other doors, even the iron door, are not, and that's kind of interesting to me. Alright, for this next one I have to find my horse. There he is. We're going to mount him. And you're going to notice that the horse is galloping in the subtitles. Now, as far as I can tell, this is pretty much unique to the horse in that his footsteps have an actual subtitle. Most other animals, as far as I can tell, don't have a subtitle for when they're walking. There are only a few others like him. Also, you get a subtitle when he breathes. I should specify that other mobs have a subtitle when they walk, but it just says footsteps. It doesn't even specify what mob's footsteps. Yeah, I find it interesting that the horse is one of the only mobs that the subtitles specify when it's walking. And the fact that it breathes ties nicely into our next one, which is the blaze. If I spawn a blaze, you're going to notice that it says blaze breathes as well as blaze crackles. So that means that those creepy whooshing noises it makes are actually the sound of it breathing, which, I mean, if you look at this thing, it doesn't look like it's got a mouth, at least not to me, so it fascinates me that the blaze would breathe. But I guess, I mean, what else are you gonna call it? I don't know. I just think it's fascinating. Next up, we have Endermite scuttles, and to me, this is kind of a weird one because it would seem that, like, the Endermite, I would call this a hissing noise, not a scuttling noise, but The fact that the subtitles say Endermite scuttles mean that presumably the Endermite has legs. Somewhere under this tiny body, this Endermite has legs to scuttle on, because that's usually what scuttling means, right, is to move along on tiny little legs. So that's my interpretation of it. But it doesn't have any legs, it looks like it's slithering, so I don't know what to make of that one, except the Endermite is mysterious and doesn't make any sense. So next up is the Elder Guardian. You'll notice that he moans, but that's not what I think is so fascinating. I think this is really cool. If I change into survival mode, in just a second... There it is. Did you see that in the subtitles? Elder Guardian curses. Tell me what's cooler than that. Not much, I say, not much. I just really love the idea that the Elder Guardian curses you for a short amount of time. I don't know exactly why, I just think it's just awesome how, I don't know, as far as I know, this is the only creature in the game that curses you. And I think it's awesome. Next up, we have the Shulker, who lurks. That's the sound that he makes when he makes that weird little... I don't even know what to call it, but that weird little noise, that's called lurking, apparently, which makes sense because the word shulker, if you didn't know, is a combination of the words shell and lurker, but I still really like that. The shulker is lurking. That's what he does all day. This is another funny little one. The Vex vexes, which literally means the Vex annoys. If you don't know the meaning of the word Vex, to vex means to annoy, which is true, they are pretty darn annoying, aren't they? So I guess the subtitle makes sense, but I still really like it. The fact that they are I think they are the only mob in Minecraft that does their own name. Then this is one that absolutely fascinates me. If I spawn a villager, you'll see the villager mumbles. If I spawn an evoker, you'll see the evoker murmurs. And if I spawn a vindicator, you'll see the vindicator mutters. Now, let's do that again. Mumbles... Oh, wow. That was cool. Mumbles, murmurs, and mutters. Like the armor, it signifies the connotation that each of these mobs has. The villager mumbling is seen as a sort of simpleton. He's not really a threat to anyone, and he's sort of, he's not very smart. That's the villager, which I think is reflected in the word mumble. Now, the evoker murmurs, and for me that means he's whispering secret spells under his breath. He's kind of mysterious. Nobody really knows how he got his powers or why he looks so much like a villager. He murmurs and he's mysterious. And then there's the Vindicator, who mutters, and the word mutter for me has a negative connotation. He sounds like he's plotting something. He's a brute, he's aggressive, and for me the word mutters just correlates perfectly with that. And that is all I have to show you in the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something, and maybe you saw some of the correlations that I saw, or maybe you just think I'm crazy. That's entirely possible. Leave your opinion in the comments if you want to. But thank you for watching this. Bye!